Episode 3 Evidence Types and Documentation. Evidence is the center of every criminal investigation. It is what allows investigators to move from suspicious to proof. However, simply finding evidence is not enough. If evidence is not documented, preserved, and handled correctly, it can lose all value in court, no matter how important it may seem. In forensic science, evidence must not only tell the truth about what happened, it must also present in a way that is reliable, traceable, and legally sound. One mistake in documentation can raise doubts about an entire case. In this episode, I'll explain the difference between direct and circumstantial evidence, how evidence is properly photographed and marked, and why context matters when interpreting evidence, and why certain chains of custody is one of the most critical processes for investigation. Direct versus circumstantial evidence. In forensic science, evidence is generally categorized as either direct or circumstantial. Understanding the difference between these two types is essential for both investigators and jurors. Direct evidence provides a fact without requiring interpretation. Examples include eyewitness testimony, confession, a video recording that clearly shows a crime occurring. For instance, a security camera recording shows a suspect committing a robbery would be considered direct evidence because it shows that he did it. Circumstantial evidence, on the other hand, requires inference. This type of evidence does not directly show the crime, but it strongly suggests a conclusion when analyzed logically. Fingerprints, DNA, fiber, tools, shoe mark impression, and gunshot residue are all type of circumstantial evidence. Many people mistakenly believe circumstantial evidence is weak and unreliable. In reality, circumstantial evidence is often extremely powerful, especially when multiple pieces support the same conclusion. In fact, most criminal cases heavily rely and sometimes entirely rely on circumstantial evidence. For example, a single fingerprint may not prove guilty by itself. However, that fingerprint is found on a weapon along a DNA and matching shoe impression. The combined evidence can form a strong and convincing case. The importance of evidence context. Evidence does not exist in isolation. Context is one of the most important factors in forensic analysis. The same piece of evidence that can have very different meanings depending on where and how it was found. For example, a knife in the kitchen is normal and expected. A knife found under a bed or discarded near a crime scene may carry much more significance. Similarly, fingerprints found in public space may not be suspicious, while fingerprints found on an object used in a crime may be critical. Forensic scientists must always consider location, timing, relevance when interpreting evidence. This is why throughout documentation is essential. It provides context for evidence and it is properly evaluated later. Forensic photograph and the 2-2-2 rule. Before any evidence is collected, it must be carefully photographed. Forensic photography is one of the most important documentation tools in an investigation because it preserves the scene exactly as it appears. Forensic photographers followed a standardized method known as the 2-2-2 rule. This indicates 2 overall photos, 2 mid-range photos, and 2 close-up photos of each piece of evidence. Overall, photographs capture the entire crime scene. These images shows the layout of the crime scene and the location of where the evidence within it. Mid-range photos bring a view closer and show the evidence in a relation to an object, such as furniture or doorway. A close-up photograph captures the fine details and are often taken with a measurement scale to show size accurately. Photographs must be taken before evidence is moved, collected, or disturbed. Once evidence is removed, the original context cannot be recreated. This makes forensic photography essential for courtroom presentations where juries heavily rely on visual documentation. Evidence marking and labeling. After evidence is photographed, it must be marked and labeled correctly. Each piece of evidence is assigned under a unique identifier, such as a number or a letter, which corresponds to documentations in the investigator's notes. Evidence markers are placed near the evidence without touching or disturbing it. These markers help investigators refer evidence accurately in photographs, reports, and testimonies. Label typically includes information such as case number, date, location, description of the item, and the name of the person who collected it. Proper labeling prevents confusion and ensures that the evidence can be tracked throughout the investigation. Chain of custody. One of the most critical concepts in forensic science is chain of custody. Chain of custody is a documentation record of every person who would handle a piece of evidence from the moment it was collected until it is presented in court. Each time evidence changes hands, the transfer must be recorded, including the date, time, and purpose of the transfer. This creates a clear, traceable history of evidence. If the chain of custody is broken or unclear, defense attorneys may argue that evidence was tampered with, contaminated, or altered. As a result, the evidence may be ruled inadmissible no matter how important it is. Maintaining chain of custody protects both the integrity of the evidence and the credibility of the investigation. Courtroom connections. In the courtroom, evidence must meet strict legal standards. Judge and juries rely on forensics documentation to determine whether evidence can be trusted. Proper documentation allows forensic scientists to explain where evidence came from, how it was handled, and why it is reliable. Without this documentation, even significantly valid evidence may be questioned or excluded. This highlights the fact that forensic science is not just about solving cases, it's also about ensuring that justice is served fairly and accurately. Evidence types and documentation are the backbone for forensic science. Without proper documentation, evidence cannot speak for itself. It cannot tell its story. It cannot support justice. By understanding the difference between direct and circumstantial evidence, preserving context through photography, and maintaining a secure chain of custody, forensic investigators ensure that evidence remains reliable from the crime scene to the courtroom. In the end, forensic scientists is not only about finding evidence, it is about protecting the truth. Proper documentation transforms ordinary objects into powerful proof that ensures that justice is based on facts, not doubts.